Hello, everyone. It's so good to be back. So, before we start this episode, please use your body spray, keep the mosquitoes away, okay? Drink a lot of coconut water, do whatever you have to do, but don't get dengue, guys. It sucks. Today, we are on the episode 59th, I guess. We are here with Jô Barreto to talk about non binary people. If you have questions about it, bring them on, okay? You're gonna love Joe. He's a very interesting person, and I hope we have time to talk a bit about music too, okay? You're about to meet him right after our podcast intro. Hello, Joe. How are you?
Hello, I'm fine. What about you?
I'm amazing. I mean, okay, to be honest, I'm 95%, but I'm getting better. I'm getting better.
Okay.
Thank you so much for being here. Okay, we should have had this talk last week,
Yes.
but I was very sick. Please introduce yourself to our listeners, man.
Okay. So, hello everyone. My name is Jô. I am a teacher and a coordinator at Times Osasco. And I don't know how to introduce myself very well. So I think that's it.
Okay, nice. We have a very interesting conversation to have about non-binary people, and it is related to this. I guess our viewers here, they probably want to know. Okay, non-binary. So, what are the pronouns I am supposed to use, and how do you feel? But I want you guys to hold your horses. We're gonna talk about it. But before,
Yes.
Joe, every English teacher, I like to ask this question because it kind of happens like an accident. We're doing something with our lives, and then we started teaching. And then, what's your story as an English teacher? What happened to you?
Okay, so I had already spoken English for a very long time. I had already graduated in my English course, and I
Nice.
think 2 or 3 years before I started teaching.
Mhm.
And what happened was that I was in college, and I needed to work.
I can relate with that.
So I couldn't find any places in schools around near where I study or where I lived, because I used to live, for people who know the city of São Paulo, I used to live on Butantã, very near the city of Osasco, and I used to study in São Bernardo do Campo. So it was almost 2 hours and a half to
Okay.
go to do this commute. So my time for working was very short. So I ended up teaching as privately for a while. In 2016, I got a job in the United States. I was there for a while doing a small project, 3 months. And when I came back, when I was coming back, actually, a friend of mine told me, "Oh, in the school that I work, we have an opening for a teacher. Would you be interested?" And I was like, okay, so I'm coming back to Brazil now. I need a job. I have no prospects of finding a job easily. So I say, okay, why not? So I came back, did the interview, and then started teaching at school. And I've been doing that since 2016 until now.
Yeah, it's a one-way road. After how do you feel that being a teacher changed you? Because we are never the same. We meet so many people, And for example, I was never like shy, but I had a hard time talking to strangers, and this was something that I noticed that changed a lot after I started teaching, because you need to pay attention on people's body languages, and the way we work teaching adults, we have this range of different profiles of people. So one day you can have a young girl, and the other day you can have an old man, and you need to be a good teacher in whatever the case and whoever
Yes.
the student you have there. So how did you feel that you changed, Joe, after becoming a teacher?
It changed a lot. Today I have a lot of less panic attacks.
Oh, you used to? Nice.
No, just kidding.
Okay.
Because I
I
am an
said nice,
introvert.
but not like, oh,
Yes.
nice that you have
No.
panic attacks.
Yes,
Nice
because
that
I
you
am an
don't have anymore.
yes, no, okay, I am very introverted. So I always like a little before every time I have to go to a place that I know 0%, I
Mm.
always get a lot of anxiety.
Mm.
And this changed a lot for me that today I'm a little better with this. I'm not gonna say, oh my God, it's perfect. I don't have any problems with this anymore because I have,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a lot less in this aspect. And it is interesting because by knowing the huge number of people that we've met, I have already taught people in all different ages. I have
Mm-hmm.
already taught people with all different study backgrounds. I taught people with very different socioeconomic backgrounds. You, it's impossible that you don't change. Your
Mm-hmm.
views of world, they change when you are in contact with so many people, with so many different people, with so many different situations, like people with disabilities, people who don't have. This changes you.
Mm-hmm.
And so my life changed a lot since I started teaching until today.
This is amazing. And since we're gonna cover a bit about minorities and preconceptions and misconceptions, I don't know if you also like the scientific aspect of this type of discussion. It's very interesting. One of the things that is scientifically proven to work with, let's say you get this person that is like a bigot, has a lot of preconception, doesn't like it, different people. One effective way to reduce this type of aversion and conflict and tribalism is you put these people together, these different people together with a common goal, and eventually they start to see one another as part of the same group. So, being a teacher, one of the beautiful things in our profession is that naturally you will just have students, and with people with a lot of different backgrounds. And it is one simple, not easy though, but it's a simple way that you could reduce all the conflict that we have when we talk about differences and group identity is basically you help people to get used to interacting with different people, can be anything that unite these different people, but if you get them in the same place with the same goal, that's it. You will have like oxytocin being produced in their bodies that will help to link. It's amazing. Now, good luck by applying this in our society, but is one way to go. Joe, we are celebrating the Diversity Month, and people are very curious here about the. They saw the title of the episode. Okay, non-binary people. So, okay, let's just start with that. It's interesting. Explain to me, like I am 5 years old. Okay, what is a non-binary person? Okay.
Okay, so a non-binary person. So let's go back a little bit so you
Mm-hmm.
can understand. So when we are talking about people, we usually have two very important groups. There is what is a cis person and what is a trans person. Okay. A cis person is a person that identifies with the gender that they are assigned at birth. So when you are born, the doctor is going to look at your baby body and is going to say, this is a man, this is a male, or this is a female. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at yourself and say, oh, I agree with this, I am a cis person. If I don't, I am a trans person. Okay. So far. So
So far, so good. Yeah.
okay, so now let's focus a little bit on this trans part. Okay, when we are trans, a person is trans, It means that this person doesn't identify, like I said, with the gender that they are born with. But if you are trans, doesn't necessarily mean that you are a trans man or a trans woman, and you need to do a hormone therapy and you need to do a big transition and change. There's a big spectrum in the middle that is not man 100%, it's not woman 100%. This middle ground, this is where the non-binary people are. Okay, they are trans because they don't identify with the gender that they are born, but they are not woman or they are not men. They can be both. They can be neither. They can be a lot of different things in this area.
Okay, so I guess one of the questions that come up first is how does it feel to be like that? Because I imagine it's very confusing, especially when you are in puberty, because you have the hormones popping up, and there are some things that are expected in terms of behavior, like, oh, if I don't feel that I have a clear gender identity, am I gonna play with the girls or with the boys in like in gym practice, for example? And how do I fit? How does it feel, Joe, when you feel like that?
Yeah, it is very confusing. That's something that I can say. That's why the discovering process for every person is so different. The
So
way that I
there's no
understood,
rule, like is something unique to.
exactly, because depends a lot on a lot of factors. Depends a lot on your family, depends a lot on your school, depends a lot on what is your gender identity. Like I know, for example, that I am not a cis man since I don't know, since I'm a teenager, I know this. But the process until I understand that I was a non-binary person, in my case, more specifically, I am a bigender. So I am a person that is man and woman at the same time. Okay, this process took a long time because my mind was very confusing. I was like, okay, I know I'm not a man, but I don't think I am a woman either. So what am I?
Oh my God.
Yes.
Philosophically speaking, it is already difficult when you start doing this type of investigation,
Yes.
and you have everything clear in your mind, and then you decide to go to philosophy and
Yes.
neuroscience, but it's very confusing, you know.
Yes.
But when you put the gender aspect on the top of the cake, I don't know. Did you have somebody to talk, man, when you started feeling like that? And how was it?
That's the thing. No, because I grew up in a very religious family, so this was
Mhm.
not something that we talked about. We never talked about. So I started to understand a little better what I could be uh, because of internet. So by doing my own research and like trying to understand and okay, and then I started to figure out a little more. The person who first saw, okay, and told me, okay, I think this is what you are, was actually my wife. Because the only person I could talk to was her. So she was like, okay, so you're not a trans woman because we know how that you don't feel like you need to transition. This is not
Mm.
something for you. So I think this is what you are because she was trying to help me through this process of discovery.
And this,
And
sorry to interrupt you, but this is
yes,
something very interesting and is one of the questions here from Marcel. And you already gave a spoiler. Joe, are you married? So this is
yes.
another misconception that is interesting to talk about, that
Mhm.
your gender identity sometimes is directly related to the sexuality of the person.
Mhm.
And it's something is not the case, right?
No, it is not the case. For example, I have no interest in men at all, but that doesn't mean that I cannot be a non-binary person. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because I have interest in women. And this is something that I was confused a lot because it took me a long time to know that this was a thing, that non-binary people existed. So because it took me a long time to know that this existed, and I knew for a fact that I was not gay, in the normal sense that
Mm-hmm.
people understand as gay, like a man that has interest in another man,
Mm-hmm.
took me a long time, a lot more for me to understand who I was. I think if I was gay, it would be easier in my specific case because I would already be in contact with this community before. I was
Mm.
not in contact with this community. I had a lot of doubts. I have a lot of things, but I was not in contact because I didn't because I didn't like other men, so I didn't have contact with anyone like that.
Yeah, I understand because if it was something strictly about sexuality, at least you have like a north, like okay,
Yes,
this is my sexuality, this is the group that I can be part of.
yes,
Oh my God, Joe, it must have been really confusing.
it was.
Damn. Okay, and if you don't mind, of course,
Yes.
explaining how was the conversation you had with your wife that said, "Oh, you get me. I married
Uh,
the right person." Haha.
Yeah, it was a good with my wife was actually a very interesting, good conversation because, like I said, she saw this on me before I did. She was the first person who actually saw this part of me. So it was a very easy conversation because she was already open to this.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, my wife, she is a bisexual woman, even
Mm-hmm.
though she has interested mostly in men. She doesn't like the regular masculine type of men.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a lot easier for her to accept me for who I was, my body the way it is, and everything else that comes with it, not only just this. She was the first person who incentivized me to try on, for example, new types of clothes. Because this is a big process when you are a non-binary person, is that you have the best parts of both sides. If you dress as a man or if you dress as a woman, you can feel good about it. I love wearing dresses. I love wearing skirts, for example.
Oh, I imagine it would feel uncomfortable because it will be tight on the wrong spot. Like, oh my God, I cannot move. But actually, now that you mention, I wore a kilt once because
Mhm.
I was in a medieval event. It was very comfortable, actually.
Yes, it is.
Okay, yeah, I can
It
see the
is
appeal
very
now.
comfortable. Yes.
And so I don't know if it exists something like this, like a soulmate, but it would definitely be the case because it's
Mhm.
like something, and this is important for people that are watching us, Joe,
Mhm.
that it's okay to be different, and it doesn't mean that because you are different, then the norm necessarily is going to be a problem. It can actually be
Yes.
like a superpower, like something that makes you an individual that will be unique in one
Mhm.
aspect. Like you
Yes.
said, she accepted my body the way it is outside and the way it is on the inside. And actually,
Yes.
I imagine is a nice match since she's very
Exactly.
understanding. And
Hmm.
that's
Yes.
nice. And you mentioned the wearing aspect. It is one of the interesting questions we have here. Like, okay, what does a non-binary person looks like? Is there anything like, oh, it looks like this or that?
That's the good part because the non-binary person looks exactly the way they want to look. They're not fixed on a because we're not fixed on a specific gender. We don't have to follow these patterns of what gender must be. If when I'm dressing mostly as a man, I can wear like I like, for example, to use my band t-shirts with pants, and people look at me and say, "Okay, this he looks like a man." Or I can be dressing, wearing like I said, like a skirt, for example, and I feel good the same way because there is nothing specific about it. It is a little difficult, I confess, to find places to buy stuff because
Mm,
clothes are made gendered usually, so sizes, it's a little complicated. But if you find a good place to buy the things that you like, and you can do and be the way that you want to be, there is no
all right.
boundaries.
I will remember my rock star years now, and I'll give a recommendation for people who want to dress in a non-conventional way. Go to thrift stores. Here,
Yeah.
thrift stores, actually, thrift stores. You're gonna find a lot of interesting stuff, and sometimes the stuff that is actually unique because it's from an old collection or
Yeah.
it belonged to an old dead person. But
Mhm.
if it fits and it feels comfortable,
Yes.
go. Thrift stores. I'm a thrift store buyer, you know. And Joe, can you explain to our listeners, was there a moment that you used to feel uncomfortable in your own body, and then you could know the shift, like you see yourself at the mirror and say, oh, I feel awesome to be the way I am, or I understand myself now? Was there a transition moment that you felt like that?
Yes, this is a big deal. I if you look if you guys look at me before the pandemic, I was um, I had a beard like here, like this,
I
a
wish I could grow
gigantic.
one, but
Yeah,
I can't.
I had a gigantic beard, uh, and I understood after a lot of time that I had this beard because I was trying to hide myself.
Okay.
I didn't like the way that I looked, so I was trying to look like how I thought I supposed to look.
Okay.
And in my case, because I was supposed to look like a man, I needed to have a big beard because this is masculine thing to have a beard. You
Oh,
know,
I'm
I
fucked then because my body feels like I am still in puberty. You know, it grow
mm-hmm,
hair in places that it's not supposed to grow, and I can't
mm-hmm,
grow a beard.
yeah.
And I wish I could.
Yeah. But so I try to do as much as possible to look like how it was supposed to look. I think the shift started a little bit more in this appearance side, especially during the pandemic, starting when I had to cut my beard.
Okay.
Because during this time it was a necessity because I couldn't go out with a mask and a beard. It was dangerous and I was very afraid of my life. I have a very weak body in the sense that I'm very susceptible for diseases and things like that. And I didn't at all wanted to get COVID because I
Mm-hmm.
know that for me, I have asthma. So for me, if I get COVID, I
Mm.
would die probably,
You were in the
especially
risk
before the
group, yeah.
vaccines because I got COVID after I was already vaccinated was bad, but was possible. But before, I saw my father got COVID and almost died. So I didn't want to be like that. So, okay, let's protect as much as possible. So
Mm-hmm.
I started by cutting off my beard. And seeing my face with no beard for the first time was a shock because I was years, literally years, almost 10 years, I don't know, that I had
You
beard.
didn't remember your own jawline, I imagine.
No,
Oh, so
exactly.
my mouth looks like this, you know.
Exactly. So it was a big shock. This was my first shock with my body was like actually seeing my face. And without like those old pictures from when I was a child, you
Okay.
know. This was my biggest first shock. After that, uh, I think my second one, of course, when you look at your body, it's very common that you feel uncomfortable with a few things. I'm very hairy, and this was a thing for me as well. My legs, my arms, my chest, this is very hairy. And I never liked it, but I never did anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
So what I tried to do was first, let's shave everything. Let's see how we look. Let's see if I feel comfortable like this. Because, like I told you, I knew already that I didn't have a specific problem with uh, not looking like a woman. This
Mm-hmm.
was not a problem for me. But other things were in my body. And this hairy part, this was. And after starting to removing this, like and looking a little more like less masculine, and in a general way, I started to shift my mind a little more to understand, okay, so this is how I like to look. After I started doing these small steps, this is what
Mm-hmm.
worked for me.
And was it a process of months, days, years? Do you have
Years.
a notion of how much did
Ah,
it take?
years. I can say that I'm very comfortable. Like really, like I look and I feel very comfortable. I don't know, about a year from now.
Okay, I'm
This is
asking this because from those who are watching us and they feel a bit confused, it's nice to know because sometimes people, how can I put it? They are very self-demanding, they ask too much of themselves, and
Mhm,
knowing that sometimes can take months or years until, okay, oh, this is how I want to dress, this is how I feel,
yeah,
this is how I want my body to look like.
exactly.
And again, sometimes it's not a matter of a surgical transition, is other adjustments, and to
Yeah,
figure it out, it's not that obvious, right?
exactly. It is a matter of doing like that. And this, what I was saying, was just the physical part of my body.
Mm,
This was the fastest part, I can say. The less difficult. But there is another part that is understanding how do you want to present yourself outside. Like I said, like the clothes that you are going to wear, how do you want to look? I am glad that I grew up most of my teen years uh, as punk. And because I was a punk person, I had access and contact with a lot of crazy people. So I already had in my mind some idea of how I would like to look. So this was a lot easier for me to go and find, okay, this is how I want to look. Let's go to, and I talked to my wife, okay, we are going to the mall, we are going to some store, I'm going to try out a lot of new clothes and see what I like or not. I have my style
Mhm.
and I want to see what I like or not. And
This
this
is
was a,
actually nice advice.
yeah, I tried a lot of stuff. I was very. This was something that was actually funny because I always wanted to do this before the pandemic, but I got always very. Uh, I didn't want to go to the test to try out the clothes because there's always someone working there, and I didn't want these people to see me carrying all these women's clothes, for example. And yeah, because I'm a shy person, I didn't want people to see me like that. But during the pandemic, when everything opened a little later, a lot of stores stopped putting people there to count the number of clothes that you're going to
Yeah,
try.
yeah.
And
Or to
because
give you,
there,
oh, this is for men, this is for women.
yes,
I remember buying a sleeveless t-shirt, and if
mhm,
the fit was perfect because I'm not a tall guy.
yeah,
So when I wanted to buy sleeveless t-shirts, I looked like an NBA player without the height
mhm,
because
yeah,
they were too big. Then I
uh-huh,
found one that was like, oh, this looks like those white sleeveless
mhm,
t-shirts that people wear in gang movies, and it felt nice.
mhm,
The
yeah,
woman came to me and said, "Oh, this is for women." I just did like, "Oh, thank you so much. I'm
yeah,
gonna take it." Like, come
exactly.
on, just sell me the damn t-shirt, right?
Exactly. So because I was afraid of passing through this process in the beginning, actually not having people there on the tryouts and to see me going there to try these clothes like that helped me a lot to be a lot less afraid of this,
Uh-huh.
you know. But even though until today, every time I go buy something, I have a family clothes. Every time someone asks, "Oh, is this a gift?" Because they don't think it's for me. When I'm going to pay, they always ask.
It's a
And
gift to myself because I
yeah,
deserve.
I usually say, "Oh no, no," and sometimes I say yes. Sometimes I say yes, it is a gift, but I don't. But you don't need to put in any specific
Hmm.
package or anything like that. I have some at home, you know. I try to say something, but this is something that people always ask because.
Uh-huh. That is actually very interesting, and I'm thinking now that might have been the worst salesperson ever because I was so happy with the T-shirt, and the first reaction was like, "Oh, this is for women." It's like, "Whoa, I like the T-shirt. Just let me have it," you know. One thing before I check the chat here, Joe. One beautiful thing about rock and roll is this subversive thing. Like you mentioned, you were a punk. When I was in my teens, I was a mix of a grunge guy with a metal head, and like I used to have this long hair to wear colors that clothes that didn't match, like different color shoes, and I
Mhm,
dyed my hair red once because
mhm.
teenagers, we just
Yes,
want to express ourselves. But
exactly.
rock and roll, I mean, at least in essence, is very open and acceptable. Like you, it doesn't matter if you have this rebel soul in a way, and by
Mhm.
rebel I mean like this non-conformity. You're gonna
Yeah,
feel you have your group, your pack, and this is
exactly.
nice. Especially when we feel when you are a teenager, everything sucks and you don't fit anywhere. And it's nice to
Mhm.
have a pack, to have a group
Yeah,
and people who accept you is
yeah,
nice.
yeah. It
Long live
is.
rock and roll.
Exactly, like you said, like even though it was not my preferred music style, we should look at the a lot of rock and metal bands, and especially like the bands from what we call the hair metal, the guys
Yeah,
from the
yeah.
70s and 80s. They dressed very androgynous.
Yeah, you get the guys from Motley Crue, for example, or
Yeah,
Cinderella, you know.
exactly. And one of my personal favorite artists of all times, David Bowie, is a
Ah,
gigantic influence when we were
very
talking about
androgynous too. Yeah.
exactly on this, you know. And it is a very important person for music. Like we probably wouldn't have music as we have today if he didn't do what he did, the bands
Mm-hmm.
he produced, and the influences he had. And this appearance part was one of the biggest influences we had because of him. I think probably because he was probably one of the very first, very big names that were very androgynous and something
Mm-hmm.
that people that are non-binary, when they see everyone like they look at David Bowie with a lot of respect
Yeah, yeah.
because of this, you
And
know.
is interesting because if you come from a background where you feel like judged or left out, and you see a famous person like that who is an icon, followed, admired, respected, you say, "Well, it doesn't have to suck to be who I am. It can
Yeah.
be a nice experience. I can find people who will
Mhm.
praise me, accept me, and
Yeah.
that's amazing. That's amazing." Before we get sidetracked here, let me take a look at the chat. Hi, Jackson. Hi, Felipe. Hi, Monica. Hi, Claudio. Hello, Felipe. Hi, Simone. Okay, people, a shout out to you, Monica. She's from Presidente Prudente, I guess. A shout out to you, Felipe. Okay. Um, One question from Felipe, Jo. What is the greatest difficulty in like discovering, finding out that you are non-binary?
Uh, I think it's the same difficult that we have when we are part of any type of minority.
Mm-hmm.
Is how society treats you. I think that's the most difficult part, because it's hard for people to find people that accepts you.
Hmm.
And even if they don't accept you completely, but at least they don't make problems for you. This is hard. I think this is probably the hardest part. Like having to deal with this day-to-day situation. Not having to listen to people saying bad stuff about you, or people looking at you uh, with like a crazy eye,
Hmm.
or not being afraid for your life depending on the day. I think this is the most difficult part.
Yeah, it's not only in Brazil, United States too. We are living a very polarized political scenario. And it seems to be that like anything that could be used as, oh, you are from the outer group, so you are my enemy. People have this kind of us versus them
Yes.
mentality that is very harmful because exactly these, like, one thing it can happen easily when you have like a football match with the true greatest team of the city. You get the wrong subway train and you enter in the train and the supporters of the other team is there, and because you are wearing the jersey of the team you can like be beaten to death. It's very crazy when you think this about
Yeah.
sport. But when you think that this could extend to your very essence, to the way you feel, it's like literally, oh, I cannot stick my head out of my window,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's a matter of doing exactly what we are doing here, like, okay, what is it, and how do you deal with that, and
Mhm.
what happens, like information, right?
Yes, exactly. Uh, there is a phrase from a song that I like very much. From the music is "People Were People" from the Depeche Mode,
Mm,
and they say
nice
people were,
band too.
yes. So the song starts like with "People were people, so why should it be you and I should get along so awfully?"
Mm,
And that's it, like everyone is people. So why are we always fighting among each other for some things that are so little? We
yeah.
should see each other as people, not as
Mm.
some alien that is coming to destroy our civilization. Yeah.
Yeah, but this is a very interesting point, Joe. One of the reasons why so many people go to bigotry is something called group identities, like this manichaeistic view of the world, like is the good versus evil, and I am part of the good guys. Whoever is out is part of the bad guys, and we have to fight. Otherwise, when you analyze the premises, you will see that normally, unless you were talking to a psycho or sociopath, somebody like that are rare, thanks God they are
Yes.
rare. People want the same thing, to live in a harmonious society where people can thrive, where you can
Mhm.
have a nice time with the ones you love, where you can walk
Yeah.
safely on the streets. At the end, people want the same thing. They just don't
Mhm.
know how to get there. And they imagine
Yes.
because you want to get there from a different route, you are the devil. And it's not like that,
Mhm.
you know.
Exactly.
But okay, I'm gonna hold the anarchist in me, and I'm not gonna say that I hate politicians today. Okay, I'm gonna hold my horses.
Okay.
But
Yes.
one fun fact, Joe, you mentioned
Yes.
about trans people, and if you are watching this, I highly recommend the work of a neurobiologist and neuroscientist called Robert Sapolsky. He's from Stanford University, and there is a course, it's free on YouTube from Stanford. You can go to
Uh-huh.
evolutionary biology, and it's very difficult to study the brain of trans people, but there are a handful of studies, and it's fascinating because they have to do is obviously post-mortem, so after the person is dead.
Uh-huh.
But let's say you have, for example, trans men. So you have, for example, a biological woman that doesn't identify as a biological woman, and it's like, I feel like I am a man trapped on a woman's body, you know.
Yes.
What's up with that? So they decided to scan, to study the brain of trans people. And there is, if you are a neurobiologist, you can know the biological sex of a man, of a woman, by looking some specific regions of the brain that are different in terms of sizes. The fascinating thing, and I want everybody to pay attention on this, is, for example, this part of the brain of a trans woman or a trans man was identical to the part that they identified themselves with. So you know, by the simple fact that it was not just a simple confusion, it was like literally feeling like I am in the wrong body.
Yes.
You know, and it's very nice because today we have the science to actually analyze these. It's not only a subjective report, like, well, I don't feel like this. You can actually make these people feel safe and calm, like, okay, what's up with you is exactly this, you know. And
Yeah.
that's why this type of discussion and information is so important, you know.
Yes,
Because
exactly.
imagine 100 years ago, for example.
Yes, that's the thing. Like, I always heard this when talking about with people who are from the realm of biology, saying about animals, and this include us, that gender and sexuality with animals, this is not something that is fixed. It's not something that simply exists. This is something that we create. There's a lot of animals that have crazy different sex experiences that have crazy different of varieties of gender. Even animals that change gender. This exists naturally in society.
The clownfish, for example, is one species that, according to the offer and demand of the environment, they just flip it.
Yeah. So if within the animals this exists, why should we be the only species to be locked in only two possible ideas?
You know why? Because unfortunately, we are the only one here that has a cortex the way we do, and then we imagine, oh, we are awesome. We can come up with religion, with philosophy, with physics, with mathematics, and we are basically a monkey feeling anxiety half of the time we are here. Like, why are we here? Where are we going to? By the way, what advice and recommendation, Jô, you could give to a person that is doing this self-discovery journey, like talk to people and analyze, and what could be done to ease the process? Because some people, they might be watching and asking, how do I know I'm non-binary? You know, what are the signs? And
it's important that you try to have as much information as you can.
Nice.
Because with more information, it's easier for you to understand who you are. Okay, because it's going to be very uncomfortable, and people will never know why it is uncomfortable until they have the knowledge to understand why. So learn as much as possible to see if that's you, that represents you. And take time. Okay, don't just watch one video on YouTube and say, oh, this looks like me, so that's me. This is not it. This is a process. You know, if possible, if you have the means, look for a psychologist that is specialized on this, because there are a lot of psychologists that are specialized on this. Talk with people that are prepared to help you make this easier, because it is a very long process, but doesn't need to be a solitary one.
That's
Other
amazing.
people have done and have been through this process before you. So look at their experiences, see if they align with you. Because even though everyone is different. The process is different from everyone. There are things that are similar in the process of people. So look for the signs and go at your own pace.
That's a nice advice. Being a teacher, Joe, have you met other people that identify themselves as non-binary and something that
Mhm.
popped up in a conversation like, oh, you feel like that too, and then you
Yes.
start to share in your mind.
Mhm. Yes. The last place that I worked, my ex-coordinator was a non-binary person, and when I met them was before they knew they were non-binary. They were in this process, and I remember we had conversations about this, and they were like, "Oh, and they were like, okay, I understand a little more, and by talking with you was part of this, it is helping me understand, and talking with my psychologist is helping me understand more, but I don't know exactly what I am." And I remember having these conversations for almost a year, and then one day, I think it was the end of 2022, if I'm not wrong, we were in the end of the year celebration, and my coordinator came to talk to me and was like, "So I think I am a non-binary person." And then after that, uh, understood that he was they, and
Oh,
this
this is a
process
this is
was
another
very
interesting
interesting.
aspect too, because depending on how the person feels, I'm saying the person because he or she cannot be adequate. It doesn't represent how they feel,
Yes.
and that's why they will ask you to be called them in this case, or they.
Mhm. Yes,
Ah, interesting.
exactly. And it is funny because there is a gigantic conversation about this. Uh, Here in Brazil, because of the way our Portuguese language is structured, I
Mm-hmm.
understand part of the difficulty because there is a longer process
Mm-hmm.
to change language in a way that is more accepting of us. But in
Yeah.
countries that are Anglophones, like the United States, the United Kingdom, there is still this conversation, even though they is already being used to talk about people in a genderless way
Mm-hmm.
since 1375. So the year 1375. So this is how long ago? Like this 800 years ago, there is
Mm-hmm.
already texts using they to describe individual in a genderless way. So, and the language is always also structured in a way that has no gender, and the
Mm-hmm.
English language.
Yeah, the adjectives there are genderless, for example, and there's
Exactly.
a huge difference when they're learning Portuguese because, like, what? Why do I have to say bonito, bonita? What the
Exactly.
hell?
So even though this is very controversial, and even in English, a lot of people like to say, "Oh, this is wrong. We can't use they for individuals. We should only use they for, I don't know, for plurals." So we use you today for individual, and we don't use
Mm-hmm.
the. Okay, you was only plural, and the was the singular form. So
Yeah.
we changed that. So it's possible to change it again to better understand. And because a lot of non-binary people they identify differently, using he or she doesn't represent very well. They
Mm-hmm.
is better because it doesn't have a specific gender. So it's very common for non-binary people having using they or having more than one pronoun, using she, they, he, they, or having three, she, he, they. They have all of the variations.
Yeah, I can see, being completely honest with you, I can see a transformation happening in two ways. One, these conversations become so common that it
Mhm.
becomes trivial. Like, what the hell I care? Like, it's
Mhm.
not my problem, and it
Exactly.
happens like you say, a natural shift, like you and thee,
Mhm.
or like in Portuguese we had Vossa Senhoria, Vós me sé, and then
Yeah.
now we have você and say in Portuguese. So
Mhm.
it happens like that, but I don't know, it could take years.
Yes,
Another way that I can see these things changing is start knowing people, like you said about
mm-hmm.
the song, and then you start calling people by their names, and whatever
Yeah,
they say, well, you can call me this or that, and all right, why wouldn't I? You are my friend. We're here socializing.
exactly.
That's the
And
two possible ways that I see it happening.
yes, and just looking at logical aspect, neutral language is very good
Hmm.
because if you don't have to assume a person's gender identity, it's a lot easier for you to talk with someone. Look, imagine that you need to talk to a person. Okay,
Hmm.
you know that you have to go to a specific place and need to talk to a person. Because we work usually within these binary ways of thinking. You see a person sitting on a desk with very long hair, working like this. You don't see the person's face. Naturally, you
Could be a
assume it's
metalhead.
yes, exactly. Naturally, you assume it's a woman, and you say, "Oh," and you use the feminine to talk to this person. This person say, "Oh, sorry, I'm a man," and your face goes to the ground. Using
I
neutral,
remember once, Joe, it was very funny. I used to have a long hair. I was in my car, and there was this guy. He was asking for some money, I guess, or selling something. And I was like this, looking ahead. And he said, "Hey, lady," and then I said, "What?" And they said, but look at your hair too." He got angry at me. I said,
yes,
what have I done to you? You're gonna get no
exactly.
coins for me, man." you know,
So
the person
imagine
got angry.
exactly. Imagine that we don't need to use this. If we use neutral words that don't have gender, if we don't need to assume a person's identity, we're not making any mistakes.
Yeah, I can see this in a more pragmatic way, just
Yeah,
to make social interactions lighter, and
exactly.
in this aspect. Something interesting here. I have no idea about the number. Do you know how many people in Brazil are identified as non-binary?
Yes, there was a research done by UNESCO, I think,
Okay.
in 2021, as
Oh, it's
part of a
recent.
yeah, recent. It was part of a study in Latin America about the number of people who identify as trans and non-binary.
Okay.
And this research found out that approximately 1.19% of Brazil's population identify as non-binary.
Okay. So, uh, this goes back to what we talked briefly about, when there is a famous person or somebody who is an icon that could represent,
Mhm.
because we imagine okay, 1.9 is like every 100 people you will meet one, maybe,
Yes.
but that's the thing. They might be in the sense of, like, in the transition moment. They could
Mhm.
be not sure yet, so they wouldn't
Exactly.
even know, oh, I am this or
Yeah,
that, or I feel like this,
exactly.
I'm confused.
Yeah.
How do you see this importance, Joe, when we're talking about some artists or a famous person? Who are the artists that are identified, or they identified as non-binary? As you
Yeah.
mentioned David Bowie, for example, as an androgynous person,
Yes,
that
exactly.
you see the way he dressed and he
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
respected. Are there famous people that identify like that?
Yes. Yeah, there are. And it is very important because gives light to it, puts a lot of big light to it, and makes it impossible for this conversation to not exist. That's why it's important to have. Uh, for example, the very first time I heard about the term non binary was because of a cartoon, Steven Universe. there is a character that doesn't in the cartoon openly say he's non-binary, but the characteristics of the character, a lot of people saw. People who are non-binary started to see and say, okay, this is a non-binary character. They just don't say it. And later, the creator of the show said, oh yes, this is a non-binary character. There are non-binary characters here. These people, they are aliens and they are not based on any Earth rule. They are non-binary. And I remember this was the very first time I heard about it because of a cartoon. That's how important it is. And this was one cartoon. When you're talking about real people, this is a lot more important. A good example is when, for example, we talk about the singer Sam Smith. Sam Smith is non-binary. And when they announced that they were non-binary for the very first time, this was gigantic. Everyone was talking about it in the music. Even on open TV channels that they don't talk about this, they had to talk about this because we had one of the biggest artists in the world, a person who had just recorded and won an Oscar as best song for the 007 movie, talking about their identity. So it was impossible to ignore,
And people can see this as you can have a social life, a successful life, regardless of how you feel in terms of your identity too. Like they can see that it's not a limitator thing, something like that. We should have a moment, Jô, to talk more about music too. I can sense there's a lot of stuff there that we can dig to, And unfortunately, we are running out of time. There is one. Let me see if I missed some questions here. Oh, one question here for Marcel. Is one of the polemic things that sometimes appears in this type of conversation. Have you ever had any problem or trouble using a public restroom or anything like that?
Problem, no, but it was uncomfortable. Because the thing is, I'm not comfortable in any bathroom. I'm not going to go to the women's bathroom. I know how I look and how I present, and I understand that women have a lot of problems, and I'm not going to be the person that looks masculine going to the women's bathroom. I know this is a problem, and I totally understand why I shouldn't be there. Okay. But going to the men's bathroom is also very uncomfortable because I feel I don't belong there. People look strange at me, especially if I'm wearing more feminine clothes. When I'm like that, I have to go to one of the cabinets. I can't go to the mictories or places like that because everyone is looking. It is uncomfortable. And as every man knows, when you go to one of those cabinets, it's terrible because someone had already used it before. The smell is terrible, but that's the only place that I feel a little more comfortable. And this is bad.
Yeah, some bars, they have genderless restrooms. And I guess this is a very simple idea, problem solved.
Yes.
Because if you are comfortable enough in a place, like imagining your house, you may have 3 or 4 bathrooms, but you don't have to put a sign there, like only men can poop here, only women can poop here.
Exactly.
So, if you are in a safe space, I guess this could be a practical solution, maybe.
Yes.
Exactly. All right, so I want to wrap this up, Jô, with one recommendation. You had a drummer background and rock and roll background too.
Yes.
What are your recommendations for music in general? If people want to get to know a bit more about your tastes, 3 or 4 artists that you say, oh, I definitely recommend these, and songs that can help people to feel better too,
Okay, interesting. Yeah. My personal tastes, they are very peculiar because we talked a little bit before we started recording. I go from punk to jazz. So that's how peculiar it is, my music background. But there is a band that I like it very much. The name is Against Me. This is a punk band, a little more to the hardcore side. That the vocalist of this band is a trans woman, and it is very good. They have an album that she wrote about this process of transitioning that it is very interesting, very good recommendation, okay, that I can give about
Against
this.
Me, the name.
Against Me, yes.
Okay, I'm gonna listen. Or not.
Yes.
You said hardcore punk, so I imagine it's like
Yeah.
aggressive, like some tak 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 tak.
It's a little, not very much, but it's a little.
Nice, nice.
There is a person that because I watch Eurovision every year.
Okay.
And this year's Eurovision was a singer named Nemo with a song about being non-binary.
Nemo. Okay.
Nemo. So this is another good recommendation that I can leave for you guys.
Okay, Eurovision Nemo, because if guys
Yes.
just put Nemo, they're gonna go straight to the Nightwish song,
Exactly.
which is a nice one as well. Jô, thank you so much for being here to share this with us. Final message for our listeners.
As what I can say for everyone is like, don't try to be comfortable with something that is not you, that is not you are. Don't be afraid of experimenting and trying to understand better what is your identity. Can lead to something, can lead to nothing. But if you don't try to understand, you will never figure out who you truly are.
Nice. Thank you so much. It was nice talking to you. I said it felt like 10 minutes.
Yes.
And guys, thank you so much for the questions that you sent. Okay, don't forget we are also on Spotify. Like this video, share, show to a person that you know that would like to see this conversation. And next week, same day, same hour, I'll be here, healthier. And hope to see you guys. Bye bye. Usual.